Well, we're being televised now.
It's not unusual that we televise executions, Mr. Wordsworth. Last year in the mass executions, we televised around the clock. 1,300 people were put to death in less than 6 hours.
Now drop and give me 20.
History teaches you nothing.
Yes.
On the contrary, history teaches us a great deal. We had predecessors, Mr. Wordsworth,
You mean like
who had
Democrats?
the beginnings of the right
What the
idea.
hell is
But their
supposed to,
era
you
was not one
moron?
of excess. It was simply not going far enough. Too many
You're kidding me.
undesirables were left around, and
this guy
undesirables
is a
eventually
real
form a
zero,
core of
that's
resistance.
It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own.
Don't
He feels
hassle the dead
sometimes,
boy.
walking around blindly
Yeah,
with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring.
Spend a lot of time with these folks.
Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as
I'm
we.
beginning to smell a big fat commie rat.
I learned about roaches.
Incited the erection.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight...
All your little speeches, you're nothing but a common thief.
When Corn Pop wasn't
I think he's in denial.
Welcome, brother.
Namaste.
Namaste. All right. My name is Jim Baldini, Jim the teacher.
You're
This
Jim the
is
teacher.
my brother, John the Wick lawyer. And together, we are the Brotherhood
We
of
just
Liberty.
got banned. All right, I made
What's
handguns. It went.
John, I promise you tonight we are going to completely get banned because one of the things we're going to be talking about is one of those no-nos that the YouTube police always go after them for.
Censorship.
So,
The commies.
yeah, well, I mean, let's be honest. I'm going to say this right off the bat. Since I'm a teacher, since it clearly says that in my name, I want to make it clear that, and I have a lawyer brother here who is also, we're going to provide an educational segment tonight on election integrity. So please make sure you tell your friends, make sure you get the word out, continually spread the word about this, because the only way we're going to be able to really push back against those who want to destroy our country is by getting the good message of liberty and freedom out there. That's what we talk about, the Brotherhood of Liberty. So tonight we're going to have a little discussion on updates. We're going to have we're going to be talking about a little bit of the restriction on liberty and freedom and what's been going on with that, and again, how to fight back. We're going to have John doing his, again, a educational segment on the Chauvin trial and everything that's going on with that. And I will be doing my election integrity educational segment as well. And then last but not least will be John's I pray for you and you pray for me, which I have no idea what he's got, but it ought to always sounds good and interesting when John
Sounds better than it really is. It always does, right?
I don't think so. I think you got something going on with that, brother. So let's start with our updates. First off, I want to let's pull up the big bad on the things that we want to discuss. We have the number of things that are being banned currently by the Democrats in New Jersey. They want to take down. They have a whole list of things here, things that are going to be banned. They want to get rid of 50 caliber weapons. They want to require permit applications and a safety course. They want to mandate that all guns are locked up. I mean, what's the point of this type of regulation? They're going to keep have ammunition tracked, but they want to have it stamped. John, I'm unsure how this process works, where the bullet is stamped as it leaves the gun. I'm not sure. Maybe you can explain that to me, because I'm willing to admit my ignorance on it. It sounds dumber than dumb and it sounds impossible. But then again, what do I know? And so this is all about what's going on with the what we have with the number of so-called mass shootings going on. I'm wondering when they're going to start doing something about all the other dangerous things out there that they're going to try to limit us on soon enough. And they also want to have the educational department overhaul for shooter drills. I have talked to people from Morris County and Sussex County and different parts of of the state, and they tell me the prosecutors come up with different plans. There's no unified plan, but I think the unified plan is, why not have good guys with guns or good gals with guns at these schools? I think that makes things safer. That's my personal opinion. I think that's something that we should have to mandate microstamping technology so that fire rounds can be traced. John, can you explain that to me? Do you know what that is?
I think, well, you could give me a heads up before that. I believe that what they expect to do is they put markers in the powder so that if it's fired, they can check it. Or, because bullets already, when they come out of barrel, they're already unique because of the lands in the barrel. So, except there are a few that avoid that by having, the octagonal barrels, but so they're already unique. The bullet itself is unique. Maybe the cartridge, but I'm pretty sure it's if I remember correctly, they want some kind of like little tiny ball, very tiny, to mix with the powder so that they can track it back. Not that they are ready, because of every PICS check and NICS check. When you go and buy a firearm, already have your name, your address, your social security number, your telephone number. So if you did leave a gun at the scene of the crime, and your fingerprints, of course, 5 times five different versions in New Jersey, so that if you ever were dumb enough to leave a firearm at the scene of a crime, instead of buying one from Chico at the end of the corner, they could immediately. Either why even bother show up at your house? Why even bother running your social security number? They just call you on the phone and say, hey, we'll be by to collect you anytime soon, because we have your name, your social security number, your address, and your telephone. So it's more of the it's just another thing for you to not have, so that they can prosecute you for, like hollow points or something else, and criminalize you. Thank you, NRA.
Brother, our sister Peg came up with it. She says it's magic microstamping. It's magic. It's regular Harry Potter. That's what she's got. So we're going to move on.
I'll microstamp this.
So the Democrats want to add 4 new justices to the Supreme Court. Again, this is called packing of the court. Those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it is something they want to go back to a different time. And again, this is nothing more than them feeling upset over the fact that they no longer have a majority on the Supreme Court, and they are just trying to put their own personal stamp on it. And make it more of their liberal activist nut jobs that they've had there in the past. And we could go back, as some of them have said, to go back to the way it used to be with 13 justices. And the time that was also the time when the judges were passing anti or pro-slavery decisions out. They were doing all kinds of things that were pro-slavery and anti-liberty and freedom. We can go back to that if that's what they want. I mean, that's what really they're trying to do anyway. So it kind of fits their model. If they want to go back to the way it was before, when they dropped it down to 9, that's okay. And we'll go back to that, and we'll continue our fight. So it's not okay, of course, but I'm just being sarcastic in my sarcastic way. We also have Kimberly Potter, and I'll just mention this because this is Dwayne Wright shooting that was going on. It's been hitting the papers a lot. We see that the liberals want this person. They want her to go to jail for the rest of her life. They want all this information, but the person who shot somebody at the Capitol gets to walk free.
Well, so, if you talk to me, I would give you the name of the murderer who shot.
I will. I know that's part of one of your segments. I didn't want to dive into it too much. My next thing. Oh, it's got an ad blocker. My next thing is I just wanted to update everyone on the NASA web. The NASA. We're causing climate change on other planets, and it's okay. We do this on other planets, but not on ours. We have the InSight, which is unable to operate anymore because the clouds, or I'm sorry, the dust has settled on his solar panels, and there's no one there to wipe it off. I wish they would have the Martians come out and clean it. I'm really getting tired of them not getting this data back in time. And lastly, John, more climate change. We've left a giant dent into an asteroid that we crashed into, and I'm wondering when Greenpeace is going to start protesting this. You can see here's the after, there's the before picture. We have damage. We've hurled a giant boulder a great distance away. And again, I'm being sarcastic, but you got to be sarcastic. So now let's talk about something serious with what we see going on out there in the world. I've come to a conclusion, brother. We have, I want to highlight this group here, the Delco Republican Force group, PAC, which is from your area. And I want to talk about them because what we see here is a model. This is a model for many of these small grassroots people out there. And before I say anything more about it, I want you to listen to this, brother. This is Corey Lewandowski talking about Trump's new political action committee, Save America.
What we're going to see across the country now is Donald Trump engaging in some of these primaries. But we have to be smart about the primaries we engage in.
Can you hear him, brother?
Yes, I can.
I believe we can beat Adam Kinzinger. I believe we can win races in South Carolina. I believe we can beat Liz Cheney in Wyoming and Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. So we're not looking to defeat Republicans who are in districts that if they lose the primary, the seat is going to go to a Democrat. Let me be clear about that. But we are looking to ensure that the candidates who are running for office in competitive primaries have the support of Donald Trump and the America First agenda, and those that are challenging incumbents who voted to endorse the notion that Donald Trump should be impeached are going to have primaries. And with Donald Trump's support and our financial wherewithal, we're the only organization that is supporting the president's agenda 100%. This is his super PAC, and we're going to use it to beat those individuals and take back the majority in the House.
What is President?
So before we go on to Sophie Mann, I want to talk about this PAC and other PACs out there. John, these are the grassroots organizations that are coming up, and they're the ones who are fed up with what we've seen with the establishment Republicans. They're the ones who are standing up. This isn't the only group of people or Republicans that I've seen do this. There's other like-minded conservatives who are stepping up to the plate. And I think my personal opinion is many of them are in some of the worser states, or I guess states that are worse than, don't have a really strong Republican center, because I'll be talking about that in election integrity. They're looking for leadership, and there is none real leadership in these upper echelons. And they're more interested in themselves, and they're less interested in what the voter wants. And that's why groups like Delco here are doing something about it and raising up the individuals in the local level and becoming a force in their area. This is a key point here, because again, I don't see it this is not unique to Delaware County. This is something I've seen in other parts of the country when I've talked to other people out there in different parts of New Jersey, different parts of Pennsylvania, and beyond, in Virginia and other places, where these small, real true grassroots, not the AstroTurf, this is real true grassroots people, are coming together and say, we've had enough. We're done listening to the party leadership. We're doing it our own way. And I can tell you, brother, they're going to have a major impact going forward. I think that we're seeing a much stronger movement towards protecting our integrity, our voter integrity, but also getting good candidates out there. Like Delco here, the Delco Republican Force, they raise money and then they give it out to the candidate they're going to support. You're going to see this all over the place. I know of at least 2 groups in my area that are moving in towards this model. And this is already something that the Democrats already have a firm establishment on. They already have this firmly established. And that's why we need to do it. The Republican leadership in many states has dropped the ball on this. and that's why these small groups are very vital to our movement here to change this. So we'll go back to finish the rest of this video because this also nails more of what I'm talking about.
Trump looking for in backing a Republican candidate right now?
Well, he wants to make sure someone is an America First conservative. That means someone who supports conservative grassroots when it comes to the more populist position on trade. Getting good.
See, here are the key words, John: conservative grassroots, America First candidates, and now you're hearing them break it down. These are all key components that you see for these candidates. Very key components.
Trade agreements, trying to get out of some of these endless wars and trying to make sure that we're not throwing big, massive breaks just to the fat cats on Wall Street and in D.C., and we're doing something that actually boosts up the working class men and women in America. So that's really the president's focus, in addition to traditional conservative values. But I think what we saw over the last couple of decades.
And I also want to remind everyone, he didn't say they had to, this is not something that's about President Trump. This is about America first.
Before President Trump ran, you had this big divide between conservative grassroots around the country and the Beltway elites, and especially on the issues of trade and endless wars. Those were two of the biggies. Now with President Trump, we've right-sized that a bit within the party, so we have a clear focus. But the president wants to make sure Republicans win back the House and the Senate in 2022.
All right, so that's my updates, brother. I will now hand the ball off to you with Chauvin.
All right, Chauvin update. Thursday, with this week was the defense week, and they put on a bunch of witnesses. They ended with an expert witness saying that it could have been CO2. So it wasn't, I mean, they could have done way more on the law enforcement. They could have done way more on the fact that the manual had this approved. They could have done way more on the fact that, there's some debate whether, the one body cam shows the pictures we all saw show him, putting his knee on the neck, but body cam from one of the officers, a couple officers down, show that it's in the shoulder blade. And even the prosecutor's own language is shifted from the neck to the neck area, meaning shoulder blade. So I could have done a lot more than that, but was a big win for the defense this week because Chauvin did not testify. Now, that can indicate a couple things. If you really want the acquittal, juries, even though it's your constitutional right not to testify, juries want to hear it. They want to hear your side of the story. So third degree, the second degree murder, there's no way they were going to get that. Third degree murder, there's still a chance that they can get that. But defense must be feeling pretty solid that because the own expert witnesses, meaning the the medical examiner, and the prosecution witnesses differed on the cause of death, meaning that one of them, they're trying to say asphyxiation, meaning that it was his neck was closed off. But the ME, the medical examiner, he's saying, well, wait a minute, he didn't say anything about asphyxiation. He's talking about enlarged heart, 90% blockage, all the drugs in his system. So even the prosecution's own witnesses disagree. That's reasonable doubt. So he didn't testify. And if he was going to take a stand, well, as we said before, it's either the case that, if for the full acquittal, he would take the stand. He would say, I'm 145 pounds. This guy is big guy. I showed up late on the scene. I had nothing to do with it. I was just backing up my fellow officers. I never would have done this. I'm going to, I'm so sorry. I apologize. This was an accident. Stuff like that. He gets a full acquittal. If he takes a stand and he is who he appears to be, a guy with 18 different complaints, scribbling like a maniac for each one of these on his little yellow pad. When somebody says something because he's some kind of control freak, then he goes away forever for everything. But that didn't happen. So big win for the defense. Now, the defense is way ahead. So on Monday, they're going to do jury instructions. That's the part where judges decide they don't like the fact that juries decide cases. So they throw a bunch of legalese at the jury, trying to confuse things. It should be completely illegal, but they do, and they dumb down as much as they can reasonable doubt. For example, they say something like, circumstantial evidence enough. You don't have to anybody. Nobody has to testify to actually seeing something. So you could go to sleep at night and wake up and there's snow out front and somebody's walked across that. You don't have to see that. Circumstantial evidence is enough to find somebody guilty. Blah 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 and stuff like that. But fortunately, they're lousy lawyers, so they just wind up droning, and for about 2 hours, you get just a drone, and all you wind up doing is confusing the crap out of the jury. So it will come down to closings on Monday. Some people think that closings don't matter because it's already decided in the people's heads. Then the jury will get the case, and that's where it will get interesting. Remember where we are too. The three charges at risk are second-degree murder, where you could get 20 to 40 years. And what they do is, to make a sentence legal, is it has to have a minimum and a maximum. So the 20 years would be the minimum he would do in jail before he could be released. Of course, you could be such a jerk, you spend the entire 40 years and don't get paroled. But they give you that minimum and maximum. So if you do everything right, you're a model prisoner and do all the program and stuff, you could be out of 20. There's no way they're going to get him for the second-degree murder for that. But for third-degree murder, he could do 12 and a half to 25, which was the Justine Diamond murder. If you remember, just last year, the Mohammed Noor, nutjob Somali immigrant, who they affirmative actioned up as fast as they could as a cop, even though, and then didn't call him back when he at a traffic stop pulled a gun and held at somebody's head. That guy was driving around, was answering a phone. If you remember this case, there was a call for a police officer. There was a call, a woman, a Australian girl, thought she heard rape or somebody having sex, and she thought they were screaming for rape. So she calls 911, and they go looking in an alley of a fairly affluent area. And she goes out there to try and help them, and they're in an alley in a very affluent area. And he says he's spooked, this Mohammed Noor nut, and she, unarmed with nothing in her hands, a woman, white woman with nothing in her hands, around 40s, fairly attractive. He sees her, says he's spooked because he thought it was an ambush. Pulls his gun, and in front of his, shooting past the face of his partner, shoots and kills her in the stomach. He got the second-degree murder for that, and it was he got 12 and a half to 25 for that just last year. The other charge that he's facing is second-degree manslaughter, which is what we call voluntary manslaughter. The guidelines for that are 5 to 10 years, but sentencing. So what they do is the statutory maximum for that is 5 to 10 years. The guidelines, though, and what they did is they came up with a thing called guidelines to kind of to where you can have guidelines be mitigated or aggravated. So if you beat a little girl, little old lady over the head, you get the aggravated. If you have mental issues or something like that, you get it mitigated, meaning you get lesser off. So for the standard range for him, it would be like 3.5 to 4.9 years if he was found guilty of the lowest second-degree manslaughter. But they're going to find him. But the judge will give him 5 to 10, they're guaranteed if he's found guilty of that. Now to the jury. When we looked at the jury pick before, way back when, a couple of weeks ago, I gave the defense the nod. They got 6 solids on their side, and now there's 6 black people in the jury and there's 6 white people in the jury. But when we'll hear in the closings, and if I was doing the closing, the number one thing that I would hit with is, you were sold a pack of lies. What did you not hear in this entire trial? Not one word about race, not one N-word, nothing, nada. 28 FBI agents, 50 of these creep Minnesota investigators, their like version of the FBI, who in the Justine killing, when Justine killing served a warrant on her to find out whether she was intoxicated, whether she had any uncontrolled substances in her house, on her house, and for her writings for of all sake. They literally served a subpoena on the victim because they were trying to do everything they can to cover up the fact that their nut job, that they affirmative actioned up a nut job who would just blast away at some poor unarmed girl calling in a rape. So those nut jobs, he got those 50 of them, and 28 FBI agents did the colonoscopy of all colonoscopies on Chauvin and got nothing. So I mean, you would start with that and then work your way to the evidence. But so when we look at it and we look at this jury and we go 6 black and 6 whites, that's not what it's really going to come down to. When you look at the jury poll on this, it's really going to be, and I'm going to take a step back here. Current jury theory says that basically you have 12 people in a jury, and they've noticed the difference between federal juries, which have 6 people, and state juries, which have 12. In federal juries, they get the quote rogue jury, and what that means is you'll get like a outrageously high $1 billion settlement. And what they theorize is this: there's about 12 people in a jury. 3 of them say absolutely nothing. 6 of them say something, and 3 of them are what you would call alphas. So what they think happens is in the federal jury with just 6, you have 1 alpha who will take over, and then you get a rogue decision. But what they think happens in state juries with 12, and why they work so much better, is that if you have 1 bad alpha, the other 2 alphas will shout them down, and then you'll get a just decision. So looking through the alpha theory of the jury, what you see is and cohorts, a little bit more psychology, is there are 6 if you're defense, you want young girls in the jury. Theory is because they're much more impressionable, they're much more empathetic, they care, they can sympathize with your poor defendant, and so that's typically the thing. And the worst thing you don't want on your jury is an elderly African American woman, because they're very, very judgmental. So that's their theory. And this jury it's not going to be about race per se as the number one issue. It's probably going to be about women, because this jury has 4 men on it and 8 women. And the largest cohort is the women between 50 and above. So there's, I think, 5. There's a 40-year-old, 3 50-year-old women, and 1 African American, a woman who's in her 60s. So it's really going to be, the jury of those 5 women. And if you look at that, going through that, I can see 2 alphas right off the bat. I can see 2 arguments one way and one argument right off the bat. Juror number 5 is a single mom, high-level executive, works for National Association of Cannabis Business, and they got equity all over that website. So she's commie mommy, woke mommy, par excellence. She would be wanting to convict on all charges, but if so, I would pick her. I would think she's the alpha. She's 1 alpha, but combating that is nurse. Juror number 10, another 50-year-old white woman who, as a nurse says that it's a life experience over expert opinion. Deals, and figure she's a nurse, so she deals with drugs, she deals with all the problems of it. She is got to be, because she's a nurse and a professional, completely on the side of Chauvin. So she would be the alpha, competing it. And let's face it, a nurse tells doctors off, so she's got no problem telling off some high-level executive. And so you can see this battle coming out, and it might just come down to, again, the older black female, juror number 11, who's in her 60s, turned off the video, but it says she's Black Lives Matters, of course, and has a blue relative. Now, which side is she going to come on? That's the judgmental side. If she comes down judgmentally, she's going to be judgmental against Chauvin, and she's going to be judgmental against George Floyd too, though. And she's going to look at George Floyd and go, yeah, that's the problem in our community. Boom, he walks. So it might be that he walks, or she could go, yeah, I'm very judgmental, and not have a bit of racism to do with it. Just the fact that she's an elderly woman, and they get very judgmental and decide that Chauvin and judge him harshly, in which case it goes, for the guilty plea. So it could be a epic, drawn-out battle, or it could be very fast. And as always, lawyers will say both because they want to appear to be smart. But as it sits right now, it's been a great week for the defense because it's hard to get your client not to testify, especially when he's a control freak nut who's used to pushing people around and bullying them. And so it was a great week for the defense because Chopin did not testify. So he's ahead right now. Good old Eric, he's swimming ahead. He can really if he's a grinder. He's been grinding it out. Now might be a time to put a little heat, bring a little heat, and see what he and step up and really take down the DA's case because it's not a strong case. It hasn't been a strong case. And once again, we were sold a pack of lies. 30 cities burnt to the ground. 30 dead people. Not one bit of race. Not one bit of race. Not one N-word. Not one Mark Furman N-word 70 sometimes. Not once. Not once. Sold a whole bunch of bill of goods.
Yeah, very good, brother. I just want to remind everybody, like and subscribe our channel. Please let your friends know about us. Make sure you send the message out. I do want to follow up with that, brother. I had promised you something special tonight. Tonight
good.
was something special. This is it. Before I start my election integrity spiel, here you go.
Remember when BLM stood for Black Lives Matter? Our cities being destroyed, burned down, millions and billions of dollars damaged in one night, 30 lives lost over a summer, the destruction of our cities.
I do believe in Marxism. I do believe in Marxism. I do believe money for nothing and it's free. We are trained Marxists. We are trained Marxists. Easy money. I could get lucky.
Big luxury mansions. Big luxury mansions.
$90 million and no tax records. If you show $10,000, you have to explain it. Where is the IRS? Did they use that money to help all the family businesses that were destroyed? I think not. Swimming pools and mansions were more important.
There you go, brother.
That was good. That was good. Lifestyles of the rich and famous, huh?
Yes.
Little leech there.
Yes.
Yeah.
There
The
it
Marxists never give the money back, do they? It's always
No,
for
they
the people, and they always keep it for themselves. What a bunch of creeps.
That is right, brother. That is right. So that was my little fun for you tonight. I will now move on to the election integrity scam and stuff that we'll be talking about tonight. I have to start off by saying most of this material is taken from the justthenews.com. By the way, that the video that you just saw will be up on the YouTube channel tonight or tomorrow for you to use. If you want to share with your friends, please make sure again that you share the message out. It's time for us to start pushing back, and there's nothing better to push back with than the hypocrisy of these people on the left. When we have these Democrats do the hypocritical act of what they're of demanding money and then turning it around and using it for their own personal gain. This is corruption in its highest. It's no different. It doesn't matter which party you in, but in this case, it's definitely clear that the left is dirty. Having said that, brother, let's talk about election integrity. So, did you know that there's 3 court cases that have been decided that prove that there has actually been problems with election integrity in the last election? And one of those, the biggest one, I think, is the Wisconsin.
Wait a minute.
one.
I thought Trump lost all the cases.
Exactly. Except for he didn't. And in this case right here, we have the 2020 election, the state Supreme Court of Wisconsin coming out very firmly and very clearly that the government of Wisconsin was wrong. The governor and the secretary of state were wrong to allow people and to give the instruction that you could claim you were disabled or homebound because of COVID. And that you did not then have to file with ID. So again, this is all about chain of custody. This is all about who has whether you're a real person or a dead person or a made up person, there's a real chain of custody on that ballot. And in this case, over almost 250,000 ballots were believed to have been affected by this rule change. And John, 20,000 votes was the difference between the two of them in Wisconsin. Just saying, clearly that's an issue. That's just one, by the way. Then there is Michigan, and we have a whole bunch of Michigan on this one, John, tonight. So I just the state Supreme Court has ruled they violated the law by giving unlawful instructions. Again, unlawful instructions from Witless Whitmore and the state secretary of state, who, by the way, is trying to go after and I want to make it clear that we are not talking about any voting machine in this case. We're not talking about any type of this court case has nothing to do with voting machines. This is accurate information about procedure and structure of the election in the 2020 election. So this is not about any type of issue regarding the machines. That's a separate issue. So the Witless Whitmore's Secretary of State had every signature was to be accurate regardless. So if Mickey Mouse signed that ballot for James Baldini, if I lived in Michigan, then that is an accurate and acceptable ballot, John. That none of them were fraudulent. It didn't matter. Every ballot counted. And regardless of it, it's accuracy. That's the second case. The third case, I'm sorry, this is interrupted. I interrupted myself with this one with Georgia. By the way, John, did you know that there's 350,000 ballots in Georgia that have no chain of custody? 350,000, John.
I wonder how many of them are Xerox copies.
All that stuff that we saw with all the videos and stuff.
Can we see?
Yes.
Can we see them? No.
Yeah. You can see them in the video of them waiting for everybody to leave and starting putting them in the machine. But the box was heavy.
Just like in Michigan, they had 90. Was it at 8:00? That's when the election is supposed to stop, and then at 3 a.m. they had a van show up with 90 boxes or something like that. 9 boxes,
yes,
90 boxes.
Yes,
right. And thousands and thousands of ballots.
Yeah. So
there's videos, guys. There's video.
In John, in Virginia, there's a consent decree that says, "Yeah, we screwed up. We accepted even ballots without postmarks, mail-in ballots without postmarks." John, mail-in ballots without postmarks. Everything is postmarked. Unbelievable.
Except for when you just run them off on a video,
Except for when you run them through the Xerox machine. Right. Ooh, it was probably one of those old ones that we had when we were kids.
James,
right?
Trump lost Georgia. Okay, you just have to get over with it. He lost it by 14,000 votes, even though he won Florida by 400,000, which is right across the border. He lost it by 14,000. Nothing to see here.
Yes, no, nothing to see here. So then we dive into the city of Detroit. Now, this is all new information. Just came out last week. Now, but we've known about the Zuckerberg operatives, and we've known about this. You and I have reported on this months ago. At this point, this is actually the evidence. So now the Amistad Project and Just the News have been doing a lot of Oprah requests and getting a lot of information from these different areas. And this is the hard slugging fight that has to be done in order to prove, and not only to prove that there's election integrity issues, but also to figure out how to fix it from happening in the future. Of course, it'd be nice if we could depend on members of the other party to do the right thing, but that's clearly never going to happen. So let's talk about how $13 million is what a regular election budget for the city of Detroit. Somehow, the $7.5 million more was dumped into their coffers to help pay for the judges, the ballot observers, the people who were making the adjudicators. All these people, the inspectors, they were all being paid off
with
money, extra funds.
That's what the Democrat does. Street money, right, brother?
Yeah,
money.
And John, it was all being done just to drive. This is all being done to drive the vote in these heavy Democratic areas. This is what we've seen now in Wisconsin. We've seen it in Pennsylvania. We now see it in Detroit. We've seen it in Green Bay is completely egregious. What we're going to talk about with Green Bay, but this is even just as bad in a sense. And I want you to give it numbers. These are the numbers that you can understand that there is certainly a problem with Detroit when they've had a population decline since 2016, John. Yet they've had a 15% increase in the number of votes. That's 80,000 more voters in this 2020 election. During the pandemic, no less, they were able to get this to happen. Why, John? Why? Well, I mean, we could say that there was a lot of dead people who voted, but
James, Detroit, we used to be a city of 2 million people because it was the center of the car industry. It's down to a couple 100,000. It's unbelievable. This is the only thing that goes up in voting rolls. Is the only thing that goes up in Detroit.
The votes are the only place that goes up in Detroit because the buildings are going down.
Everything is ridiculous.
But John, the population shrunk there, and they were able to get more people to vote. Why? And I think a lot of this has to do with the Zuckerberg money that was dumped into it, the $7.5 million that was dumped into it in order to strategically, and this is the key terms, John. I want to put this in contrast for you. I want you to think of it like this: when you run a campaign, when you're trying to drive your own personal people to the vote, to get your vote out, to get your people behind you. When you're running, a candidate is running their campaign, they do things like geofencing, and they use the modern technology to figure out what you're more likely to vote for, what kind of issues you're interested in, and things that are going to drive you to the polls, right? This is exactly what they were doing in Michigan and in different parts of the country. They were using data, and we'll find out later that especially Liz Whitmore was giving, or within contractual fashion, data on the COVID tracing to Democrat operatives, John. So when you do all this COVID tracing to see who you've talked to, where you've been, what you've been come in contact with, all that data has been handed to the Democrat operatives so that they can use it in order to increase the vote. And we see this throughout the country, but we have proof coming out of Detroit and coming out of Michigan, and we can see this here. The operatives are being paid off and bought by the Zuckerberg money. The contracts are out there. I just want to go on to the next page. The thing that should be upsetting to all of us is the military ballots that are out of Michigan. The Secretary of State, according to Phil Klein from the Amistad Project, he pointed out that they were sent out with the wrong kind of paper. So these magic machines that take pictures of the image of the ballot and decide who voted for who, John, those machines that run the ballots through, they need a certain weight of paper. They need a certain kind of paper in order to run through it. Otherwise, it gets crinkled up, destroyed, and it doesn't go through the machine. It turns out that all the military ballots sent out from Michigan were sent on the wrong paper. And so what is the remedy for this, John? What's the remedy? Well, the remedy is you take every single ballot from the military, you bring it down to the TCF Center, which is the customer treating customers fairly center in Detroit. It really is a place, John. That's what they call it. It's right there on Detroit River. I got a picture of it and everything. They have 130 some tables there, and what they do is they give the ballots out to these people working here that the Zuckerberg money is paid for, and they have them copying it over. Oh, you voted for Trump. Okay, Biden gets the number here. Okay, you voted for Trump. Up, Biden gets the number here too. And that's what they did because, John, here's the thing. Every single one of those votes, you know where the Republicans were during that? Because the Democrats were all over the place. The Democrat operatives who were observing it were all over the place. Where were the Republicans? Back up in the bleachers, way up in the top of the TCF Center, hidden from view. Not even the nosebleed seats, John. Not even the nosebleed seats. You couldn't see anything. There's no oversight. There's no protection. There's no checking. The Treating Customers Fairly Center in downtown Detroit was used as ground zero for the destruction of election integrity. That's the way to look at it. And John, these are the military ballots. These are the people who are putting their lives on the line, who are overseas right now, who are absentee ballots, because what choice do they have? They're overseas. They can't fly home to vote. And so they trusted the integrity of the election, their vote, on the government of Michigan, and it failed them. In fact, it completely ruined it for them. And, that's just, we're moving on now. The next thing, in Wisconsin, Green Bay. John, who's in charge of an election? It's supposed to be the election clerk. Everywhere you go in the entire country, there's somebody who's the election clerk that's in charge of the vote. They're the ones who keep track of everything. They monitor the numbers. They're the ones who sign at the bottom of the dotted line. They're the ones who are in charge of it. Guess what happens in Wisconsin, John? The Wisconsin clerk from Green Bay is pushed aside, sent on leave, and when she actually gets done, she sends this email, and I have the quote. I love the quote. I don't understand how people who don't have knowledge of the process can tell us how to manage the election. Because, John, she was replaced by a Democratic operative who was paid off by Zuckerberg. And so he had the keys to the election, and that's in Green Bay. And John, I remember the ballots coming in from Green Bay, and that's when things started to go really south really quick. So, and to give you a comparison of the money that was spent in the two different areas in Trump country, per voter, it's about $4 per voter that was spent on a Trump candidate or Trump voter in the Trump areas, and in the blue areas, it was $47 per vote. And, John, one of the questions I'm going to ask you later, I'm giving you a heads up, by the way. Here's a heads up.
You're supposed to do that the day before, not
well, it's not really. You don't really need a heads up for this because I think I can answer it for you. The point of this is the Zuckerberg money that they did through a nonprofit, is that legal to give to these election centers, these clerks, in order to enhance the vote in that area, as opposed to around the entire state? You think about it as we go to the next slide. So this organized effort by the Zuckerberg wasn't just Zuckerberg. It was something from a bunch of different places. Its intention was to drive the vote, to have people come out in the blue areas. And one of the things about the Democrats in Michigan, if you remember, John, Liz Whitmore was closing down election sites in the Republican areas. Why? Because she was using COVID as a scapegoat in order to, we can't have this. We got to get rid of these places. We can't have voting. And we know that Republicans are the ones who vote most of the time in person. And this is just more orchestrated maneuvering from the Democrats to disrupt and take away our election integrity. And moving on, the solution, John. The solution. There's a bunch of things that we need to do. First of all, get rid of the dark money of these Zuckerberg people. No more private money into the organization. Get a chain of custody for every vote. ID. We have a bunch of possible solutions. Improve the structure. I think Phil Klein had one of the best suggestions. Every single legislature out there should have a standing committee ready to call in the entire legislature at a moment's notice for during the election period, the period before an election, during the election, and directly after the election. Because right now, all it is a Secretary of State signing off on the election, saying, "Yeah, it's
the
what's that?
judges."
It's and the judge. Oh no! Instead of there being a check to make sure everything's okay, to call a stay on it, every single legislature should have a check on whether that certification goes to the federal government. It shouldn't just be signed off.
Well, they've been sending it to judges, regular judges. Judges should have nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
They
that
should all
too.
be
They
the
should have nothing to
legislature.
do with it. So here's my question, John: is this illegal now? Before we put in a law that says no private money from any type of charity organization to be given to a government organization for elections, is this legal now?
Is it legal? No, it's a lie. It's a fraud. They wanted to support Democrats, and they did it by lying, by saying that they were supporting everybody, and they only supported their favorite candidates in the Democrats. That's enough for wire fraud and mail fraud.
Oh, there you go. And so my next question, because I want to give you a chance.
If there was a real federal government acting to prevent election tampering, which is what this is, they'd be suing. The feds love that wire fraud. They love that mail fraud.
Well,
They'd
John,
be all over this, and these people be facing the rest of their lives in jail, like our poor Capitol guys are. 400 of them.
So John, let's step back for a second. If the federal government isn't going to do it, who should be doing that? What you're saying about taking things to court?
Sometimes the states states have their versions of the law too. The reason why the wiretapping, the reason why the federal wire fraud and mail is they love, because for the federal stuff you need two underlying and two letters or two emails, and you got it for the federal.
But John, there's no Republicans leadership out there. There's none of these Republican organizations which are doing this, which should be doing this. They should be taking these states to court. They should be fighting this. And John, where are they? They're not doing it. And why? Why aren't they doing it? And I'll tell you the reason. It goes back to my opening about Delco Force Pack. Republican Force Pack and the other grassroots organizations. It's because the leadership in the states are cowardly hiding and not willing to rock the boat because they're afraid they're going to get a bad name and it's going to ruin the Republican brand if they start declaring election integrity. Well, and so that's why grassroots organizations are saying, screw you, we're not taking this anymore. We're not sitting down. We don't want your establishment characters anymore. And I'm not targeting any particular candidate right now. I'm just pointing out that these are why these grassroots organizations are standing up. They're tired of it. They're tired of seeing this other stuff go on, brother. And I think that's it. Yep, there it is. The singular largest election intrusion in history.
You mean erection intrusion?
Erection, yes. I should have put that.
If you're going to get banned, might as well go whole hog.
Yeah, you might as well go all the way, right? All right, brother. So now it's your segment where we talk about I pray for you, you pray for me.
Our little old Italian grandmom Philomena, our little illegal immigrant grandmother who used to make literally the ambrosia, the spaghetti of ambrosias, the ambrosia spaghetti. Used to say, I say prayers for you, you say prayers for me. It's a deal, right? Right? Meaning we're all in this together. I say prayers for you, say prayers for me. So anyway, that's where I'm starting. And I was watching the research for this about the Noor, the Mohammed Noor case about the murder of Justine Diamond, the poor Australian girl who just called 911 one day because she heard somebody being raped and got shot in the stomach for it and murdered. And so I was listening to one of the researching because that's the same charges for Chopin, and I was listening to the juror, and one of the jurors was interviewed, and he made a very prescient comment. He said, after that case, and they found him guilty, and he went away for 12 and a half years to 25, which was good, but he said a case like that, it's just a tragedy for everyone because no one really wins because you can't make it different. That's the hard part. You can't fix it. You can't make it better. And I was thinking about that. And I'm thinking, Yeah, you can make it better. There's a couple things you could do. Number one, stop the racist nonsense. Stop the racism begets racism. When you give racism privileges, which is what they're doing to Black Lives Matter and to an affirmative action and all the rest of it, when you create more racism, all you're doing is creating racism on the as a counter to that. Racism begets racism. So Black Lives Matter has literally become the KKK of the Democratic Party today. Just like you used to have white supremacists way back when, now you have black supremacists. Just like you used to have the devaluation of black lives way because they were ex-slaves back then. Now you have the devaluation of white lives. Just like back then you have the elevation of white lives, like they were more special than the black lives, the ex-slaves back then. Now you have the case of the devaluation of white lives. And so we're going to break some news here because you won't see it anywhere else in the news, in the American news. But just this week, the murderer of Ashley Bobbitt, the poor 14-year veteran of Air Force veteran who just wanted to see her rights and her guy, Donald Trump, rights protected on January 6th in the Capitol, who was unarmed with nothing in her hands, was murdered by, and because you won't hear the name of it, I will tell you the name of him, Lieutenant Michael Leroy Byrd. That's the murderer. And the DOJ, the useless piece of crap DOJ, came out and said they're not going to prosecute him. Now, from the video, and I dispute some of the videos because the angles are weird. It's hard to tell. From the video, this cop, this lieutenant, who happens to be a black cop. Now, I can't say that he's a nut job or he was affirmative action. He might be one of the better cops, but this day he totally panicked and screwed up huge. I can't say that because we don't know anything about him because they're not prosecuting. I can say in great detail that nut job Mohammed Noor, who held a gun to somebody's head for a traffic stop, should have never gotten on the force. Should have been psychologically screened. Should not have been fast tracked. Then when he had the incident with the traffic, should have been removed from the force and was a murderer looking to murder somebody. I can say all that because we have a little bit of history, and of course it was affirmative action because he was affirmatively actioned up to that position. I can say all that because we have had a trial and that stuff came out. Can't say any of that. You're not going to be able to say any of that because the useless piece of creep, a bunch of creeps, DOJ came out and said, "Oh, we can't sue. Well, we can't criminally charge him for anything. Well, he didn't do anything wrong." Now, look at the video for that case. So Ashley, the worst case scenario for them, Ashley, she didn't break the window. She's climbing through a window, and I guess Nancy Pelosi is more important. Some rich, corrupt twit who's never held a job in her entire life. His life is more important and deserves protection so that if anybody comes even near her, they can shoot and kill them. Apparently that's the standard. But so there's a door, there's a broken window. It's barricaded on the other side. On Ashley's side, there is a guy in a suit, looks like Capitol personnel, like the ushers or whatever, like a little bit right behind her, and of course a whole crowd. There's a tactical guys. We know this too because in the later video, the tactical squad, maybe it's like their version of a SWAT team, are on that side of the barricades too, because they're the ones that are trying to administer to Ashley as she dies in their hands. So this idiot lets off a round downrange, shooting and killing in her neck, killing her, while there's a guy in a suit. Capitol personnel, but I guess it's a lowly Capitol personnel. It's not Nancy Pelosi, right? Or Chucky Schumer. It's standing like literally right next to her or a little bit back behind her. And of course, a whole crowd of people he doesn't give a crap about. And of course, the tactical squad coming down the doors, which if he had a radio, had to happen. And yet there's no negligence. Chauvin's on trial for negligence. How come he's not going to be on trial for it? There's no depraved mind. There's no outrageous risk. Where's my Chauvin one for the second-degree murder for Chauvin that they're going to do? That they're going after Chauvin for second-degree murder? You need what is it? you need a depraved mind without regard for life. That's what you need for second-degree murder. The good old Muhammad Noor got. He got second degree for. How is that not depraved mind with no regard for life, no regard for poor Ashley who died, no regard for the rest of the crowd, no regard for the Capitol personnel in the suit standing right behind her, no regard for the tactical squad? How come that guy is in charge again? Because Ashley's life just doesn't matter. Now, let me you brought up the Dante case, the Dante what's his name? Wright case, right? And that came up because just this week too, a little incident came up where they're rioting or they're trying to riot, and that's what got me all started on this. And they in the riot, you can hear them say, push the white people to the front. Push the white people to the front. Why? Because they have to make it look like it's everybody. They have to give it legitimacy that everybody is so shocked and horrified by this. And again, it's not a good thing. That's why they should never have these tasers. You're going to have this mistake because you have these tasers that basically feel like guns and look like guns and have a trigger, and it's just inevitable. But I'm not defending that, but I want you to hold that in mind while I do talk about Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor was a no-knock warrant. Now, good old Rand Paul has a no-knock warrant act out there for in Congress right now because he calls it Breonna Taylor no-knock warrant. This is a complete evil. It's an unconstitutional, constitutional criminal act. There is no excuse. There's no exception. If you you have a warrant, you have to knock on the door, present it to them, give the person a chance to give them whatever they want. It was always been it's part of the judicial nullification of the Constitution. It's always been the part of the criminal acts that judges let these cops go away. But that not even the worst possible case. So basically, her no good drug dealer boyfriend gets in a shootout with the cops and she gets a bullet. Yes, the cop shot like 36 rounds to 6. Yes, it was bad, but that's nothing compared to the Duncan Socrates Lemp case. If you remember a little while ago, that no-knock warrant case, that's an out-and-out murder by these cops, by this so-called SWAT team over the red flags. So basically, over these no-knock warrant, over the draconian gun laws in Maryland. So these jerks, this kid as a juvenile somehow gets disabled by Duncan's a 20-year-old young computer kid. Could be anybody you see, any of the really good, nice young kids you see out there on computers fixing your IT stuff, right? So he's a computer guy, just happens to like guns. Somehow, when he was a juvenile, he gets disabled from having a right to a gun. So he's in his father's house. His brother is sleeping in the house. He's sleeping next to his pregnant girlfriend. This jerk, they are going to serve a no-knock warrant on him because allegedly he was on YouTube and he had a gun and they didn't tell him he's not allowed to have a gun. Nobody told him this. They're just going to serve a warrant on him, right? And so they take stations up. This cowardly, murdering cop takes stations up behind, in the window because he's sleeping on the bottom floor. And so they bang on kicking the door in. He jumps up because he hears no knock, no warrant, right? Just screaming. He jumps up, probably grabs a gun, and they shoot him down in the back like the cowards they are. No body cams on, by the way. No body cams, right? In front of his pregnant girlfriend. There's no warrant for him. He's committed no crime. He's done nothing. How come they're not burning down cities over that? And it just goes to show you the devaluation of lives. Yeah, there's a problem here. Number one, how do you fix the problem? Number one, you stop the racism crap. You stop preferential. You stop all of it. You should be equal under the law. Everybody should be equal under the law. Nobody should give a crap about what color you are, whether as an advantage or as to hold you back. Yeah, everybody should be able to sue if somebody is discriminating against you. If somebody's discriminating against you for any particular reason, you should be able to sue. You should be able to get charges. There shouldn't be, quote, protected classes. There shouldn't be special people. Everybody's the same. That's what it means. That's the genius. It's just like the Catholic religion. It has to be for everybody or it's for nobody. just like the genius of America. It has to be for everybody or it's for nobody. And what you have now is the reassertion of this age-old aristocratism and the promotion of a particular set of people versus over the other people. You cannot cure society by doing that. So, as in the ancient wisdom of dear grandmother, you say prayers for me, I say prayers for you, because we're all into this together. You come to my riot, I'll come to your riot. Because we're all in this together, right? Otherwise, as you know, as she was not also afraid of, go to hell, go to the hell. And that's the essay on
brother. Okay, very well done. Very well done. So do you have anything else you want to add?
Can you give it to me?
Well, before I do that, I want to say thank you all for watching the show. Make sure you tell your friends about it. Thank you for watching as far as you have. If you agree with us, please share with your friends. If you don't agree with us, that's too bad. You'll get over it. This is grow up. Yeah. So or throw up if it bothers you that bad. So we're the Brotherhood of Liberty. My name is Jim, the teacher. This is my brother, John Wick, the lawyer, and we are together the Brotherhood of Liberty. And brother, all is good. It's all good.
It's all good. Come on, say it. It's all good.
It's all good.
Because God loves you.
Because God loves you. All right, everybody, take care. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.